Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem. This is a postmortem of my Blitz chess video number 212. I usually say Blitz chess game number 212, but in this case the video had two games in it. So it's video 212, I guess. So the first game, let's take a look at it. This was pretty interesting. I made a mistake here, but then my opponent just gave the game away in a one move. So it started out as a queen's pawn opening, d4, d5. c4, and then he took. So this is the queen's gambit accepted. So the main moves are c6, Slav, e6, the main queen's gambit declined, and d takes c4, the queen's gambit accepted. And I played this actually in the wrong order. I should play knight f3 first. The idea with knight f3 is to stop the move e4. So after e3, e4 is actually a possible move. You'll see this, rather e5. e5 is a possible move here. It's kind of annoying. If you take the pawn, then I can just take the queens off and then gather back this pawn. You see black is actually doing well here. So, I mean, I can grab this pawn. He can grab this pawn. And, you know, I've lost my castling privileges. The queens are off. Who's to say who's better developed, but the material is even. And, yeah, the engine really thinks black is better here with bishop f5, rook d8 check. Yeah. So, anyway, that's... you don't actually take the pawn in this situation. You play bishop takes c4. But this gives black a good game. So that's why in this position, the normal move is knight f3. You want to stop that. So anyway, I played the wrong move order. I played e3. And he went knight f6, so he didn't play this e5 move. And we're going to get back into, I think, a fairly standard position. I take the pawn. I could have played knight f3 there as well. And even here, is it a move? Let's see. e6. I guess e5 is no longer a move, but e6 would get us back into kind of a mainline position. But my opponent played bishop f5, so we're out of the book here. And get to the notation tab. That's what I was trying to do. So looks like it's a sort of a typical opening advantage for white. Nothing really awful has happened. He missed his chance to play e5 and maybe equalize there. So just continuing, getting in that knight f3 move. Knight c6, knight c3, and e6. And now we've got a very standard position here. I castle. And one thing I guess maybe that black has done that's a little bit suspicious is he's put this knight in front of the c pawn, and a lot of times you want to play c5 here to try and counterattack the center. But I don't know, this is a way to play too. Sometimes the bishop will come here to g4 and trade itself for this knight, and then this knight will be more powerful on c6, having access to these squares. Without being opposed by a knight, you need to push a pawn to take advantage of that. Anyway, bishop d6, h3, keeping the bishop out of g4. Castles. Knight h4, going after his bishop. So all these moves are very logical, and no big blunders yet. That comes later. Knight a5, bishop e2, and you see I have a decent edge for white here. Bishop e4. At some point I make some mistake here. Yeah, I don't know if this is a good idea. This basically gives away the bishop and the knight on e4. Although I can't chase it with f3 right away, I have to save my knight, which took me a moment to recognize, but I saw that finally. And then he gets on c5. So you can see he finally got in this break with c5, but he had to, you know, it took an extra move with the knight to get it out of the way. And I don't know what the knight is really doing over here. With correct play, I should be pretty good here. So bishop d3, still okay. Knight back to f6. And I play knight e5. So knight e5 is a mistake. It looks like, let's show the computer line here. D takes c5. You know, I didn't want to play this because I thought it was just kind of opening things up and equalizing for black. But after he takes, his pieces are just badly placed. So I can play a3 here, threatening to fork his bishop and his knight, so he has to retreat. And then I can play b4 to kick his knight around. So I just get a couple of tempos. I have a nice position for my bishop, a nice square on b2. And so it looks like this would be good for white to play this way. So I didn't recognize that. And instead I played this move, knight e5. And this is not so great, but not losing. Just that now black has an okay game here. Takes, maybe taking wasn't the best, but and then he went to d5. He got a good square for his knight out of the exchange. And then I play a3 here, and that creates a hole on b3. And he takes advantage of that in a move or two. It says I should try queen c2. I wanted to look at this too. Queen c2. I wanted to play this in the game. You know, it's a threat to attack this pawn here. But I thought he would play knight b4 here. So it looks like I can grab the pawn anyway. Queen, king h8. This is always a bit tricky. You've got to move something now. Queen takes c5. Ah, this is the trick I didn't see. Queen takes c5. So you let him have the bishop, and you're going to win one of those knights. Or if he saves the knights, then you can save the bishop. So best is knight a6, really. Oh, because this knight is defended by his queen. And then just queen back to c2, defending the bishop. And if he tries the g6 trick, you can take. And looks like you've sacked a piece, but you have decent chances here with the attack. And his king stripped of all his defensive pawns, and the knight's over on the side of the board. This is actually a very funny position. Look at how black's pieces are all arranged in a line on the back or the side. Okay, so that would have been an interesting way to play here. Queen c2, allowing knight b4. So yeah, obviously I didn't see that far. I just played a3 to stop knight b4. And but now he can jump in. Well, he plays c4 first, which is a good move. I retreat my bishop, and now he jumps into b3, hitting my rook and hitting my bishop. And so I play the move. Looks like either rook a2 or queen c2 is playable here. You know, rook a2 has to be played eventually. But I played queen c2 first, threatening checkmate. So that just is a little tempo move. So he should do something like queen h4 is a good defense. And then I'm going to have to play rook a2. And then my pieces are just very awkward over here. And black has the edge. Material's even, but black has the edge. Instead, he took the knight. And that was the end of the game. So anyway, the lesson here is, well, there's two lessons. One is you should always notice when your opponent lines up his queen and his bishop pointing at your king. And the second lesson is that if your opponent is leaving a piece hanging, maybe he didn't actually overlook that. Maybe he had a reason to leave it hanging. Okay, so that was that game. Kind of an amusing finish. But it was pretty well played up to that point, and even I was getting in a bit of trouble. So the next game was a little bit different. So I was black in this game. Yeah, let's go back to the opening book. And my opponent played e4. I play e5, and we get into a Ruy Lopez, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4. And now here I should play knight f6. Once again, I was actually getting my opening lines confused. So knight f6 is what I should play here before the b5. I mean, I still can play b5 and bishop c5 later after knight f6 castles. So we transpose back into the main position, but this is a bit of an oddity, the way I played this. Bishop here, and then bishop c5 immediately without bothering to play the knight f6 move. So he can play c3 here, and he does. It's a good move. It's a good move in the other line, too. It's not like it's anything bad. And now I play d6. You need to kind of shore up this pawn. It's possible for white to chase away the defenders. So, for example, with the d4 and d5 kicking the knight, if it's not supported by this pawn, then the e-pawn will be hanging. So white castled here, and I play knight f6. And so we actually have transposed back into the main one of the main lines of the position I was trying to reach. So we got back into what I was trying to go for. And then one way to play here is with a4, going after these pawns, but Also, d4 is a good move here, just shutting down the diagonal. I think d4 is the way I would play it myself, shutting down the bishop along this diagonal. But my opponent instead played queen e2, and so eventually, this is not a losing move yet, but eventually he gets in trouble by not playing d4. He avoids it for many moves. So he played rook d1, cancel. He played, let's just go look at the notation tab. Yeah, he played rook d1. Oh, I was putting it on e1. Yeah, rook d1. So it was not a necessary move. It's kind of a funny move. Because he could have played d4 anyway. Oh no, maybe not in this position. Right. Because he put his queen on e2, he no longer has the move d4. So he went queen e2. I castle. He went rook d1, and I developed my bishop. Then he played d3 instead of d4 because this has taken away some of the support for the move d4 by pinning the knight. Let's back up and see if d4 could have still been played here. Yeah, I guess d4 is no longer playable. So he should have played it when he had the chance. And yeah, even in this position, d4 is not a move. Okay. So he had a chance to play d4 earlier. He missed it. Now he's forced into this kind of passive setup with d3. And black. So black has at least an even game. The engine didn't like my knight e7, but you have to, figure out how you're going to make progress and win the game. And my idea is just to bring the knight over to the king side and launch a king side attack. This bishop is already set up for a king side attack. This bishop is also doing a job on the king side. I'm just moving all my pieces in that direction. A very, very simple plan. So he plays bishop g5, and I go knight g6. And now here he can play d4, it looks like. So once again, he should play that. Or he could play h3, trying to kick my pieces around. He should just do something about my pieces. Instead, he trades, and this helps me by bringing another piece of mine onto the attack against his king, and it gets rid of one of his defenders. So now he's actually in serious trouble. He defends the best way here. So up until that exchange, it's an even game, and then it's all in my favor here. I have the move knight f4 now. Great square for that knight. And these pieces are starting to cluster menacingly. So I'm just trying to figure out, how to get my queen on this file so I can get threats against f6 or h3 or f3 rather. And notice that this bishop is still pinning the f-pawn, so he doesn't have the move f3 or f4 at any time to chase my pieces away. He went queen f1, also the best move according to the engine. It looks like maybe the only move here. And I went queen g6, trying to get something on this line. And now the engine's recommending king h1. He played knight h4, so this is a bit of a mistake. Queen h5, and then bringing the other knight up. And now I have the move g5. So that's getting my last piece into the attack, as it were. I haven't got my rooks in the attack, so I guess another sort of slower plan would be to bring the rook up and over. But the immediate g5 here wins some material because he can't defend his knight on f3 anymore. After g5, he's got to move something. He could have played h3 here. So let's take a look at this. This is the best defense. So h3, bishop takes, g takes h3, and g takes h4. So I've picked up a pawn, and his knight is under attack, and so it has to go to h2. It says knight h2 is the best move, knight e1. And I guess the queen can't go to any square that defends the knight because my knight is covering those squares. So anyway, yeah, this is one of those attacks that's starting to build momentum. Queen g6 check. Yeah, so that would be his best defense. I've already picked up some material, and the attack is continuing, so that would be good for me. He tried knight f5, and then I can just take this knight off, and then I can come in with the queen, and now there's horrible threats against the king here. He tried rook d2, h3 I guess is the best try here because that defends this square. I'm going to play knight h3 next. So h3. I can still play knight h3 check. It gives him a square for his king. That's the main idea, so he doesn't have to sack the queen. So, but I'm winning more material. I'm taking on f2 after this, so this is just mopping up. So what he did instead, he played rook d2, and that allows the move knight h3 with even more severe threats, because now the king has no squares, and this loses the queen. So now we're in a position where I'm a queen versus a knight, and the number of pieces is even. It's just I have the better quality piece. And the game actually continues for quite a while here. It's not always so simple just to break through and win. I play bishop, white. White plays bishop d1. I go for d5. Yeah, you want to trade things off and open up lines for your heavy pieces. The queens and the rooks like open lines, so that's what the plan is. Bishop e2, and I take a pawn. He takes back. Rook a d8, and the other part of the plan is just to trade off pieces, because the fewer pieces there are, the more the advantage of the queen will show. Takes. Bishop to f1, chasing my queen away. But now there's a mate in 7 starting with bishop takes f2 check. That's interesting. You know, you always have to watch out for these. So yeah, this is the first time the mate threat shows up. Anyway, well, the way I played was probably good enough. Queen f3, still threatening f2 here. Bishop g2, and now there's a mate in 5, which I play this one. Queen f2 check, king h1, and rook d2, and now there's no way to stop the mate. He can try knight e7 check, knight h6 check. I was thinking knight h4 would hold on the longest. But after knight h4, oh, of course, I have g takes h4. That was a problem. He had no knight moves that defend the bishop here, and after knight there, I just take with the bishop. So he can't defend his bishop, and of course, if the rook comes here, then just queen takes rook is checkmate. So there's just no way to defend things. Let's see. Yeah, he played knight h6 check, and I played king f8, and there's no more checks and no way to stop the mate in 1. So the game ended here. My opponent resigned, and that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this double header. And as a reminder, always keep your eye open for those tactics, and also try and remember your opening variations. Since it's funny, in both games I messed up the opening moves. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed that. See you later. Bye.